Good evening. I'm Mr. Harris. For over 20 years, I ran a small group home for children. Tonight, I want to tell you about a boy named Jacob. This story, it still keeps me awake sometimes. Jacob drew pictures that made the other staff members uncomfortable. Dark, heavy lines, buildings with no doors, no windows, just black walls rising from black ground. The social worker said it was normal. Kids express trauma through art, she said. But I knew there was something more. He was 8 when he came to us. Small for his age. Quiet. Jacob had these deep brown eyes that seemed too old for his face. He'd been in 3 foster homes before ours. Each time, something went wrong. Not his fault, they said, but the pattern was there. The first week, Jacob barely spoke. He'd sit in the corner during group activities. During meals, he'd eat quickly, then disappeared his room. The other kids tried to include him. Our house rules encourage friendship, but Jacob, he built walls around himself. That's when the drawing started. I remember the first time I saw him with that black crayon. It was a Tuesday morning. Breakfast was over. The kids were doing their chores. Jacob sat at the kitchen table, drawing. The paper was almost completely black. I walked over, asked what he was making. Jacob looked up at me. Those brown eyes were so serious. "It's a house," he said. "A house where people live." I looked at the paper again. Just black rectangles. No doors. No windows. No way in or out. Something twisted in my stomach. I'd seen a lot of children's drawings. Happy families. Stick figures holding hands. Colorful houses with smoke coming from chimneys. But this was different. This was a cage drawn by a child who understood cages. I sat down next to him. "Tell me about this house, Jacob." He shrugged, kept coloring, adding more black lines, making the walls thicker. "People live there," he said quietly. "They can't leave, but they're safe." Safe. That word hit me hard. I'd worked with traumatized children for years. But Jacob's version of safety was a prison, a place with no exits, no windows to see the outside world, just walls, thick black walls. The next day, he drew another building, same style, black walls, no doors, no windows. I watched him from across the room. His little hand gripped that crayon so tight. His knuckles were white, like he was holding on to something important. The other kids started to notice. Tommy, who was 10, asked Jacob why he only drew in black. Jacob just stared at him, didn't answer, went back to his drawing. Tommy shrugged and walked away, but I could see the confusion in his face. During lunch, I pulled Jacob aside. "Would you like to try some other colors?" I asked. I showed him a box of crayons. Red, blue, yellow, green. All the colors a child should love. Jacob looked at the box, then at me. "Black is better," he said. "Black is honest." Honest. An 8-year-old using that word. I wanted to ask what he meant, but something in his expression stopped me. He wasn't ready. Not yet. So I let him keep drawing. Day after day, black buildings, black walls, black everything. The other staff members grew concerned. Mrs. Patterson, who taught our morning classes, asked if we should limit his access to art supplies. "It's not healthy," she said. "Children should draw happy things. Flowers, sunshine, not whatever this is." I disagreed. Jacob was communicating the only way he knew how, through those black drawings. If we took that away, he might stop communicating altogether, and then we'd lose him completely. 2 weeks passed. Jacob's room was covered with his artwork. Dozens of black buildings. All the same. No doors. No windows. Just walls. The other kids started avoiding his room. They said it was creepy. Made them feel sad. But I kept watching. Kept trying to understand. Because somewhere in those dark drawings, Jacob was telling us something important. Something we needed to hear. 3 weeks into Jacob's stay, his social worker came for a visit. Ms. Rodriguez was a kind woman. She'd been working with Jacob for 2 years. She knew his history better than anyone. We sat in my office while Jacob drew in the common room. Ms. Rodriguez looked tired, more tired than usual. "How is he adjusting?" she asked. I told her about the drawings, about the black buildings, about his refusal to use any other colors. She nodded slowly. "His father was sentenced to 15 years, she said quietly. "Armed robbery. Jacob was there when they arrested him. Saw the whole thing. The handcuffs, the police car, everything. I felt something cold settle in my chest. He visits his father?" I asked. Ms. Rodriguez shook her head. "Jacob thinks he's going to end up in prison too. Like father, like son. That's what his grandmother used to say before she died." Suddenly, those drawings made sense. The black buildings, the walls with no doors, no windows. Jacob wasn't drawing houses. He was drawing prisons. And in his mind, that's where he belonged. He's convinced he's destined for jail. Ms. Rodriguez continued. "Every time he acts out, even a little, he says he's proving everyone right, that he's bad, just like his dad." I looked through the window at Jacob. He was hunched over his paper, drawing another building, another prison, his future as he saw it. My heart broke for this kid. He was 8 years old, and he'd already given up on himself. That evening, I tried a different approach. Instead of asking about his drawings, I asked about his father. "Do you miss him?" I said. Jacob stopped coloring, looked at me with those serious brown eyes. "He's not coming back," he said. "Not for a long time." "Do you want to see him?" I asked. Jacob shrugged. "They don't let kids visit there. It's dangerous." That's what Ms. Rodriguez says. I could hear the longing in his voice. Despite everything, he loved his father, missed him. "What was your dad like?" I asked. Jacob's face softened, just a little. He made pancakes on Sundays, taught me to ride a bike. He wasn't always bad. Then the walls went back up, but he did bad things. Now he's gone. I realized then that Jacob wasn't just processing his father's absence. He was processing his own identity. If his father was bad, and he looked like his father, acted like his father, then he must be bad too. Simple child logic. Devastating child logic. The next day, I brought something to show Jacob. A photo of my own father. "He was in prison too," I said. Jacob looked up from his drawing, surprised. "Really?" I nodded. "For 3 years, when I was about your age." Jacob set down his crayon. This was the first time he'd stopped drawing to listen. "What did he do?" he asked. "He stole money from his job. He was desperate. We didn't have enough food." Jacob nodded. He understood desperation. I thought I was going to be a thief too. I continued. "For years, I thought that's what sons of criminals became. Criminals." Jacob was staring at me, really listening. "But you're not a thief," he said. "You help kids." "That's right," I said. "I chose a different path. Your father's choices don't have to be your choices." Jacob looked at his drawing, then at me. "But what if I'm bad inside?" he whispered. "What if I can't help it?" I knelt down next to him. "Jacob, I've been working with kids for 20 years. I can spot the bad ones. Trust me." He looked skeptical. "You're not bad. You're hurt. There's a difference." For the first time since he'd arrived, Jacob smiled. Just a little, just for a second. But it was there. "Can I still draw?" he asked. "Of course," I said. "But maybe you could try drawing something else. Something that doesn't have walls." Jacob picked up his black crayon, started drawing. I watched, hoping to see something different. But it was another building, another prison. This time, though, he drew something new. A small figure standing outside the building. A stick figure, just standing there, looking at the walls. "Who's that?" I asked. Jacob looked at his drawing, then at me. "That's me," he said. "I'm not inside yet. I'm just looking." It wasn't much, but it was a start. For the first time, Jacob had drawn himself outside the prison. Not inside, not trapped, just standing, watching, choosing. The breakthrough came slowly, like winter melting into spring. Jacob still drew his black buildings, but now there were always people outside them. Small stick figures, some walking away, some just standing, some looking up at the sky. I started joining him during his drawing time, not talking much, just sitting nearby. Sometimes I'd ask simple questions. What's that person thinking? Or where is that person going? Jacob would answer thoughtfully. He was beginning to see possibilities. One morning, about a month after our talk, Jacob surprised me. He picked up a blue crayon, just for a moment, then put it back down. Reached for his black one instead. But I'd seen it, the hesitation, the curiosity. Change was coming. The blue one looked nice, I said casually. Jacob glanced at me. It's just, I don't know what to draw with blue. I smiled. What do you see when you look outside? Jacob walked to the window, looked up. Sky, he said. Clouds. Those could be blue, I suggested. Jacob considered this, picked up the blue crayon again, held it like it might bite him. Then very carefully, he drew a small patch of blue at the top of his paper, above the black building, above the stick figure. A tiny piece of sky. It was such a small thing, but I felt like cheering. After weeks of solid black, Jacob had added color, light, hope. He looked at his drawing, then at me. It looks different, he said. Good, different. I asked. He nodded. Maybe. The changes came faster after that. Jacob started using other colors. Brown for the ground, green for grass, yellow for a sun that barely peeked over his black buildings. His drawings were still dominated by those dark structures, but now they existed in a world with light. The other kids noticed. Tommy asked if he could draw with Jacob. Jacob said yes. This was huge. For weeks, he'd been protective of his art time, secretive, but now he was sharing, opening up, letting others into his world. I watched them draw together. Tommy made bright, cheerful pictures. Houses with smoke coming from chimneys. Families holding hands. Normal kid stuff. Jacob still drew his dark buildings, but now he was explaining them to Tommy. This is where sad people live, he said. But look, they can come outside. Tommy listened seriously. 8-year-old wisdom. Why don't they just leave, he asked. Jacob thought about this. Because they're scared, he said finally. They think it's safer inside, even if it's dark. Tommy nodded. That's sad, he said. Yeah, Jacob agreed. But look, some of them are coming out. And they were. Jacob's stick figures were getting braver. Some were walking toward the edges of the paper. Some were looking up at his small patches of sky. Some were even smiling. Tiny curved lines for mouths, but smiles nonetheless. 3 months into his stay, Jacob drew something that made me stop breathing. A building, still black, still without doors or windows. But this time there was a crack in the wall, a small opening, light coming through, and a stick figure approaching the crack. Not running away, not hiding, approaching. What's happening here? I asked. Jacob looked at his drawing. He found a way, he said simply. A way out. I asked. Jacob shrugged. Maybe, or maybe just a way to let some light in. Either way, it was progress. Hope in graphite and crayon. That night, I called Ms. Rodriguez. Told her about the drawings, about the changes, about the crack in the wall. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Jacob asked me something last week. He asked if people can visit his father, if kids are allowed now that he's older. My heart jumped. What did you tell him? I asked. I told him we'd have to check. But Mr. Harris, I think he's ready. I think he needs to see his father, to understand that loving someone doesn't mean becoming them. I agreed. Jacob needed to separate the man from the crime, the father from the criminal. He needed to see that his dad was still his dad, trapped behind walls, yes, but still capable of love, still capable of hoping his son would choose differently. The visit was scheduled for the following month. Jacob was nervous, excited, scared, all at once. What if he doesn't want to see me, he asked. What if he's disappointed? I assured him that wasn't possible, that fathers don't stop loving their sons, even behind bars. The night before the visit, Jacob drew one more picture, a building with walls. But this time there were two stick figures, one inside, one outside, and between them, a small window. They were looking at each other, reaching toward each other, connected despite the walls. The day of the visit, Jacob was quiet. He'd been up since 5 in the morning, drawing. I found him in the common room with a fresh piece of paper. This drawing was different. It showed two people sitting across from each other, a table between them, no walls, no prison bars, just two people talking. Is that you and your dad? I asked. Jacob nodded. I want to show him this, he said, holding up all his drawings. I want him to see that I'm not trapped. Not yet. The hope in his voice was heartbreaking and beautiful. The drive to the prison took 2 hours. Jacob sat in the back seat, clutching his folder drawings. He barely spoke, just stared out the window, watching the world pass by. Free world. The world he was choosing to stay in. At the prison, Jacob went through security like a small soldier. Serious, determined. The guard checked his drawings carefully. Art supplies weren't usually allowed, but these were different. These told a story. They let him keep them. I waited in the visitor's room while Jacob met his father. Through the glass, I could see them. Jacob's father was younger than I'd expected. Thin, tired, but his face lit up when he saw his son. Pure joy, pure love. Whatever mistakes he'd made, his love for Jacob was real. They talked for an hour. Jacob showed his drawings, explained them. His father listened, really listened. I could see tears in the man's eyes. Pride, too. His son was an artist. His son was thoughtful. His son was choosing differently. When the visit ended, Jacob was quiet again, but different quiet, peaceful quiet. How is it? I asked as we walked to the car. He's proud of me, Jacob said. He said I'm braver than him, that I'm making better choices. How do you feel? I asked. Jacob thought about this. Sad, he said, but not scared. He's still my dad, but he's not my future. Such wisdom from an 8-year-old, such clarity. It took my breath away. The drive home was different. Jacob talked about his father, about the prison, about how small his dad looked in that orange jumpsuit. But he's still my dad, he kept saying. He made mistakes, but he loves me, and he wants me to be better. That night, Jacob drew something that made the whole staff gather around. A building, still black, still imposing. But now it had a door, a real door, wide open, and stick figures walking out. Not running, walking, calmly, purposefully, choosing freedom. What changed? I asked. Jacob looked at his drawing, then at me. I figured out the difference, he said, between being trapped and choosing to stay. My dad is trapped, but I'm not. I can choose to leave. 6 months later, Jacob was adopted by a wonderful family, a couple who understood his history, who appreciated his art, who saw his potential. The day he left, he gave me a drawing, the last one he'd made at our home. It was a house, a real house, with windows, with a door, with smoke coming from the chimney. And in front of the house, a small figure, a boy, standing in the sunlight, arms outstretched, free. On the back, he'd written, "For Mr. Harris. Thank you for helping me find the door." I still have that drawing. 20 years later, it sits on my desk. A reminder that children aren't defined by their circumstances, that hope can grow in the darkest places, that sometimes all a kid needs is someone to sit with them, to see their pain, to believe in their future. Jacob writes to me sometimes. He's in college now, studying art therapy. He wants to help other kids. Kids like he used to be. Kids who think they're destined for dark places. Kids who need someone to show them the door. His letters always in the same way. Still drawing in color. Still choosing freedom. And I smile every time, because that little boy who only drew in black, who saw prison walls in his future, he found his way out. He chose light. He chose hope. That's what I learned from Jacob, that the walls we build in our minds are often stronger than any real walls. But they're not permanent. With time, with love, with someone who believes in us, we can find the cracks. We can let the light in. We can choose to walk through the door. And sometimes, just sometimes, we can help other people find their doors too. Thank you for listening to Jacob's story. There are more children to remember, more stories to tell. But Jacob's taught me something important. Hope isn't something we find. It's something we choose. Every day, every moment, every drawing at a time. Until next time, this is Mr. Harris, remembering the children who changed my life and hoping their stories might change yours.